Email, Wikipedia audio. Electronic mail is a method of exchanging messages between people using electronic devices. Email first entered limited use in the 1960s and by the mid-1970s had taken the form now recognized as email. Email operates across computer networks, which today is primarily the Internet. Some early email systems required the author and the recipient to both be online at the same time, in common with instant messaging. Today's email systems are based on a store and forward model. Email servers accept, forward, deliver, and store messages. Neither the users nor their computers are required to be online simultaneously, they need to connect only briefly, typically to a mail server or a webmail interface, for as long as it takes to send or receive messages. Originally an ASCII text-only communications medium, Internet email was extended by multipurpose Internet mail extensions to carry text in other character sets and multimedia content attachments. International email, with internationalized email addresses using UTF-8, has been standardized, but as of 2017 it has not been widely adopted. The history of modern Internet email services reaches back to the early ARPANET, with standards for encoding email messages published as early as 1973. An email message sent in the early 1970s looks very similar to a basic email sent today. Email had an important role in creating the Internet, and the conversion from ARPANET to the Internet in the early 1980s produced the core of the current services. Terminology. Historically, the term electronic mail was used generically for any electronic document transmission. For example, several writers in the early 1970s used the term to describe fax document transmission. As a result, it is difficult to find the first citation for the use of the term with the more specific meaning it has today. Electronic mail has been most commonly called email or email since around 1993, but variations of the spelling have been used. Email is the most common form used online, and is required by IETF requests for comments and working groups and increasingly by style guides. This spelling also appears in most dictionaries. Email is the format that sometimes appears in edited, published American English and British English writing as reflected in the corpus of contemporary American English data, but is falling out of favor in some style guides. Mail was the form used in the original protocol standard, RFC 524. The service is referred to as mail, and a single piece of electronic mail is called a message. Email is a traditional form that has been used in RFCs for the author's address and is expressly required for historical reasons. Email is sometimes used, capitalizing the initial E as in similar abbreviations like e-piano, e-guitar, A-bomb, and H-bomb. An Internet email consists of an envelope and content. The content in turn consists of a header and a body. Computer-based mail and messaging became possible with the advent of time-sharing computers in the early 1960s, and informal methods of using shared files to pass messages were soon expanded into the first mail systems. Most developers of early mainframes and mini-computers developed similar, but generally incompatible, mail applications. Over time, a complex web of gateways and routing systems linked many of them. Many U.S. universities were part of the ARPANET, which aimed at software portability between its systems. That portability helped make the simple mail transfer protocol increasingly influential. For a time in the late 1980s and early 1990s, it seemed likely that either a proprietary commercial system or the X.400 email system, part of the government open systems interconnection profile, would predominate. However, once the final restrictions on carrying commercial traffic over the Internet ended in 1995, a combination of factors made the current Internet suite of SMTP, POP3 and IMAP email protocols the standard. The diagram to the right shows a typical sequence of events that takes place when sender Alice transmits a message using a mail user agent addressed to the email address of the recipient. In addition to this example, alternatives and complications exist in the email system. Alice or Bob may use a client connected to a corporate email system, such as IBM Lotus Notes or Microsoft Exchange. These systems often have their own internal email format, and their clients typically communicate with the email server using a vendor-specific, proprietary protocol. The server sends or receives email via the Internet through the product's Internet Mail Gateway, which also does any necessary reformatting. If Alice and Bob work for the same company, the entire transaction may happen completely within a single corporate email system. Alice may not have a MUA on her computer but instead may connect to a webmail service. Alice's computer may run its own MTA, so avoiding the transfer at step 1, Bob may pick up his email in many ways, for example logging into mx.b.org and reading it directly, or by using a webmail service. Domains usually have several mail exchange servers so that they can continue to accept mail even if the primary is not available. Many MTAs use to accept messages for any recipient on the Internet and do their best to deliver them. Such MTAs are called open mail relays. This was very important in the early days of the Internet when network connections were unreliable. However, this mechanism proved to be exploitable by originators of unsolicited bulk email, and as a consequence open mail relays have become rare, and many MTAs do not accept messages from open mail relays. The Internet email message format is now defined by RFC 5322, with encoding of non-ASCII data and multimedia content attachments being defined in RFC 2045 through RFC 2049, collectively called Multipurpose Internet Mail Extensions or MIME. RFC 5322 replaced the earlier RFC 2822 in 2008, and in turn RFC 2822 in 2001 replaced RFC 822, which had been the standard for Internet email for nearly 20 years. Published in 1982, RFC 822 was based on the earlier RFC 733 for the ARPANET. From, the email address, and optionally the name of the author. In many email clients not changeable except through changing account settings, date, the local time and date when the message was written. Like the from field, many email clients fill this in automatically when sending. The recipient's client may then display the time in the format and time zone local to him/her. Origin. Internet email messages consist of two major sections, the message header and the message body, collectively known as content. The header is structured into fields such as from, to, CC, subject, date, and other information about the email. In the process of transporting email messages between systems, SMTP communicates delivery parameters and information using message header fields. The body contains the message, as unstructured text, sometimes containing a signature block at the end. The header is separated from the body by a blank line. Each message has exactly one header, which is structured into fields. Each field has a name and a value. RFC 5322 specifies the precise syntax. Informally, each line of text in the header that begins with a printable character begins a separate field. The field name starts in the first character of the line and ends before the separator character colon. The separator is then followed by the field value. The value is continued onto subsequent lines if those lines have a space or tab as their first character. Field names and values are restricted to 7-bit ASCII characters. Some non-ASCII values may be represented using MIME-encoded words. Email header fields can be multi-line, and each line should be at most 78 characters long and in no event more than 998 characters long. Header fields defined by RFC 5322 can only contain ASCII characters. For encoding characters in other sets, a syntax specified in RFC 2047 can be used. Recently, the IETF EAI working group has defined some standards track extensions, replacing previous experimental extensions, to allow UTF-8 encoded Unicode characters to be used within the header. In particular, this allows email addresses to use non-ASCII characters. Such addresses are supported by Google and Microsoft products, and promoted by some governments. The message header must include at least the following fields. RFC 3864 describes registration procedures for message header fields at the IANA. It provides for permanent and provisional field names, including also fields defined for MIME, NetNews, and HTTP, and referencing relevant RFCs. Common header fields for email include. Note that the to field is not necessarily related to the addresses to which the message is delivered. The actual delivery list is supplied separately to the Transport Protocol, SMTP, which may or may not originally have been extracted from the header content. The to field is similar to the addressing at the top of a conventional letter which is delivered according to the address on the outer envelope. In the same way, the from field does not have to be the real sender of the email message. Some mail servers apply email authentication systems to messages being relayed. Data pertaining to server's activity is also part of the header, as defined below. Operation. Message format. SMTP defines the trace information of a message, which is also saved in the header using the following two fields. 2. The email address, and optionally name of the message's recipient. Indicates primary recipients, for secondary recipients CCC, and BCC, below. Subject, a brief summary of the topic of the message. Certain abbreviations are commonly used in the subject, including RE and FW.cc, carbon copy. Many email clients will mark email in one's inbox differently depending on whether they are in the to or CC list. Content type. Information about how the message is to be displayed, usually a MIME type. Precedence, commonly with values bulk, junk, or list. Used to indicate that automated vacation or out-of-office responses should not be returned for this mail, e.g. to prevent vacation. Notices from being sent to all other subscribers of a mailing list. Send mail uses this field to effect prioritization of queued email, with precedence, special delivery messages delivered sooner. With modern high-bandwidth networks, delivery priority is less of an issue than it once was. Microsoft Exchange respects a fine-grained automatic response suppression mechanism, the X-Auto Response Suppress field, message ID, also an automatically generated field, used to prevent multiple delivery and for reference in reply to. In reply to, message ID of the message that this is a reply to. Used to link related messages together. This field only applies for reply messages, message ID of the message that this is a reply to, and the message ID of the message the previous reply was a reply to, etc. Reply to, address that should be used to reply to the message, sender, address of the actual sender acting on behalf of the author listed in the from field, archived at, a direct link to the archived form of an individual email message. Message header. Header fields. Message body. Content encoding. Plain text and HTML. Other fields that are added on top of the header by the receiving server may be called trace fields, in a broader sense. Received. When an SMTP server accepts a message, it inserts this trace record at the top of the header, return path. When the delivery SMTP server makes the final delivery of a message, it inserts this field at the top of the header. Internet email was originally designed for 7-bit ASCII. Most email software is 8-bit clean but must assume it will communicate with 7-bit servers and mail readers. The MIME standard introduced character set specifiers and 2 content transfer encodings to enable transmission of non-ASCII data, quoted printable for mostly 7-bit content with a few characters outside that range, and BASE64 for arbitrary binary data. The 8-bit MIME and binary extensions were introduced to allow transmission of mail without the need for these encodings, but many mail transport agents still do not support them fully. In some countries, several encoding schemes coexist. As the result, by default, the message in a non-Latin alphabet language appears in non-readable form. Therefore, for international character sets, Unicode is growing in popularity. Authentication results. When a server carries out authentication checks, it can save the results in this field for consumption by downstream agents. Received SPF stores results of SPF checks in more detail than authentication results. Auto-submitted is used to mark automatically generated messages. VBR info claims VBR whitelisting. Most modern graphic email clients allow the use of either plain text or HTML for the message body at the option of the user. HTML email messages often include an automatically generated plain text copy as well, for compatibility reasons. Advantages of HTML include the ability to include inline links and images, set apart previous messages in block quotes, wrap naturally on any display, use emphasis such as underlines and italics, and change font styles. Disadvantages include the increased size of the email, privacy concerns about web bugs, abuse of HTML email as a vector for phishing attacks, and the spread of malicious software. Email messages are generally not encrypted. Email messages have to go through intermediate computers before reaching their destination, meaning it is relatively easy for others to intercept and read messages. Many internet service providers store copies of email messages on their mail servers before they are delivered. The backups of these can remain for up to several months on their server, despite deletion from the mailbox. The received fields and other information in the email can often identify the sender, preventing anonymous communication. Web bugs invisibly embedded in email content can alert the sender of any email whenever an email is read, or reread, and from which IP address. It can also reveal whether an email was read on a smartphone or a PC, or Apple Mac device via the user agent string. Servers and client applications. Some web-based mailing lists recommend that all posts be made in plain text, with 72 or 80 characters per line for all the above reasons, but also because they have a significant number of readers using text-based email clients such as MUT. Some Microsoft email clients allow rich formatting using their proprietary rich text format, but this should be avoided unless the recipient is guaranteed to have a compatible email client. Messages are exchanged between hosts using the simple mail transfer protocol with software programs called mail transfer agents, and delivered to a mail store by programs called mail delivery agents. Accepting a message obliges an MTA to deliver it, and when a message cannot be delivered, that MTA must send a bounce message back to the sender, indicating the problem. Users can retrieve their messages from servers using standard protocols such as POP or IMAP, or, as is more likely in a large corporate environment, with the proprietary protocol specific to Novel GroupWise, Lotus Notes, or Microsoft Exchange servers. Programs used by users for retrieving, reading, and managing email are called mail user agents. Mail can be stored on the client, on the server side, or in both places. Standard formats for mailboxes include Maildir and Mbox. Several prominent email clients use their own proprietary format and require conversion software to transfer email between them. Server-side storage is often in a proprietary format, but since access is through a standard protocol such as IMAP, moving email from one server to another can be done with any MUA supporting the protocol. Many current email users do not run MTA, MDA, or MUA programs themselves, but use a web-based email platform, such as Gmail, Hotmail, or Yahoo Mail, that performs the same tasks. Such webmail interfaces allow users to access their mail with any standard web browser, from any computer, rather than relying on an email client. Upon reception of email messages, email client applications save messages in operating system files in the file system. Some clients save individual messages as separate files, while others use various database formats, often proprietary, for collective storage. A historical standard of storage is the Mbox format. The specific format used is often indicated by special file name extensions. Some applications leave attachments encoded in messages for searching while also saving separate copies of the attachments. Others separate attachments from messages and save them in a specific directory. File name extensions. The URI scheme, as registered with the IANA, defines the mailto scheme for SMTP email addresses. Though its use is not strictly defined, URLs of this form are intended to be used to open the new message window of the user's mail client when the URL is activated, with the address as defined by the URL in the To field. Many email providers have a web-based email client. This allows users to log into the email account by using any compatible web browser to send and receive their email. Mail is typically not downloaded to the client, so can't be read without a current internet connection. Delivery reports can be used to verify whether an address exists, and if so, this indicates to a spammer that it is available to be spammed. If the spammer uses a forged sender email address, then the innocent email address that was used can be flooded with NDRs from the many invalid email addresses the spammer may have attempted to mail. These NDRs then constitute spam from the ISP to the innocent user. URI scheme Mailto. The Post Office Protocol 3 is a mail access protocol used by a client application to read messages from the mail server. Received messages are often deleted from the server. POP supports simple download and delete requirements for access to remote mailboxes. The Internet Message Access Protocol provides features to manage a mailbox from multiple devices. Small portable devices like smartphones are increasingly used to check email while traveling, and to make brief replies, larger devices with better keyboard access being used to reply at greater length. IMAP shows the headers of messages, the sender and the subject, and the device needs to request to download specific messages. Usually mail is left in folders in the mail server. Types: Web-based email, POP3 email services. Messaging application programming interface is used by Microsoft Outlook to communicate to Microsoft Exchange Server, and to a range of other email server products such as Oxygen Mail Server, Curio Connect, Scalix, Zimbra, HP OpenMail, IBM Lotus Notes, Zarifa, and Binary, where vendors have added MAPI support to allow their products to be accessed directly via Outlook. Email has been widely accepted by business, governments, and non-governmental organizations in the developed world, and it is one of the key parts of an revolution in workplace communication. A sponsored 2010 study on workplace communication found 83% of U.S. knowledge workers felt email was critical to their success and productivity at work. It has some key benefits to business and other organizations, including email marketing via opt-in is often successfully used to send special sales offerings and new product information. Depending on the recipient's culture, email sent without permission such as an opt-in is likely to be viewed as unwelcome email spam. Many users access their personal email from friends and family members using a personal computer in their house or apartment. Email has become used on smartphones and on all types of computers. Mobile apps for email increase accessibility to the medium for users who are out of their home. While in the earliest years of email, users could only access email on desktop computers, in the 2010s, it is possible for users to check their email when they are away from home, whether they are across town or across the world. Alerts can also be sent to the smartphone or other device to notify them immediately of new messages. This has given email the ability to be used for more frequent communication between users and allowed them to check their email and write messages throughout the day. As of 2011, there were approximately 1.4 billion email users worldwide and 50 billion non-spam emails that were sent daily. Individuals often check email on smartphones for both personal and work-related messages. It was found that U.S. adults check their email more than they browse the web or check their Facebook accounts, making email the most popular activity for users to do on their smartphones. 78% of the respondents in the study revealed that they check their email on their phone. It was also found that 30% of consumers use only their smartphone to check their email, and 91% were likely to check their email at least once per day on their smartphone. However, the percentage of consumers using email on smartphone ranges and differs dramatically across different countries. For example, in comparison to 75% of those consumers in the US who used it, only 17% in India did. Email messages may have one or more attachments, which are additional files that are appended to the email. Typical attachments include Microsoft Word documents, PDF documents, and scanned images of paper documents. In principle, there is no technical restriction on the size or number of attachments, but in practice email clients, servers, and Internet service providers implement various limitations on the size of files, or complete email, typically to 25 MB or less. Furthermore, due to technical reasons, attachment sizes as seen by these transport systems can differ to what the user sees, which can be confusing to senders when trying to assess whether they can safely send a file by email. Where larger files need to be shared, file hosting services of various sorts are available, and generally suggested. Some large files, such as digital photos, color presentations, and video or music files, are too large for some email systems. The ubiquity of email for knowledge workers and white-collar employees has led to concerns that recipients face an information overload in dealing with increasing volumes of email. With the growth in mobile devices, by default employees may also receive work-related emails outside of their working day. This can lead to increased stress, decreased satisfaction with work, and some observers even argue it could have a significant negative economic effect, as efforts to read the many emails could reduce productivity. Email spam is the term used to describe unsolicited bulk email. The low cost of sending such email meant that by 2003 up to 30% of total email traffic was already spam, and was threatening the usefulness of email as a practical tool. The U.S. Can-Spam Act of 2003 and similar laws elsewhere had some impact, and a number of effective anti-spam techniques now largely mitigate the impact of spam by filtering or rejecting it for most users, but the volume sent is still very high and increasingly consists not of advertisements for products, but malicious content or links. A range of malicious email types exist. These range from various types of email scams, including social engineering scams such as advance fee scam Nigerian letters, to phishing, email bombardment and email worms. Email spoofing occurs when the email message header is designed to make the message appear to come from a known or trusted source. Email spam and phishing methods typically use spoofing to mislead the recipient about the true message origin. Email spoofing may be done as a prank, or as part of a criminal effort to defraud an individual or organization. An example of a potentially fraudulent email spoofing is if an individual creates an email which appears to be an invoice from a major company, and then sends it to one or more recipients. In some cases, these fraudulent emails incorporate the logo of the purported organization, and even the email address may appear legitimate. Email bombing is the intentional sending of large volumes of messages to a target address. The overloading of the target email address can render it unusable and can even cause the mail server to crash. Today it can be important to distinguish between Internet and internal email systems. Internet email may travel and be stored on networks and computers without the sender's or the recipient's control. During the transit time, it is possible that third parties read or even modify the content. Internal mail systems, in which the information never leaves the organizational network, may be more secure, although information technology personnel and others whose function may involve monitoring or managing may be accessing the email of other employees. Email privacy, without some security precautions, can be compromised because there are cryptography applications that can serve as a remedy to one or more of the above. For example, virtual private networks or the Tor anonymity network can be used to encrypt traffic from the user machine to a safer network, while GPG, PGP, SM email, or S/MIME can be used for end-to-end message encryption, and SMTP startles or SMTP over transport layer security/secure sockets layer can be used to encrypt communications for a single mail hop between the SMTP client and the SMTP server. Additionally, many mail user agents do not protect logins and passwords, making them easy to intercept by an attacker. Encrypted authentication schemes such as SASL prevent this. Finally, attached files share many of the same hazards as those found in peer-to-peer file sharing. Attached files may contain trojans or viruses. Flaming occurs when a person sends a message with angry or antagonistic content. The term is derived from the use of the word incendiary to describe particularly heated email discussions. The ease and impersonality of email communications mean that the social norms that encourage civility in person or via telephone do not exist, and civility may be forgotten. Also known as email fatigue, email bankruptcy is when a user ignores a large number of email messages after falling behind in reading and answering them. The reason for falling behind is often due to information overload and a general sense there is so much information that it is not possible to read it all. As a solution, people occasionally send a boilerplate message explaining that their email inbox is full, and that they are in the process of clearing out all the messages. Harvard University law professor Lawrence Lessig is credited with coining this term, but he may only have popularized it. Originally, Internet email was completely ASCII text-based. MIME now allows body content text and some header content text in international character sets, but other headers and email addresses using UTF-8, while standardized, have yet to be widely adopted. The original SMTP mail service provides limited mechanisms for tracking a transmitted message, and none for verifying that it has been delivered or read. It requires that each mail server must either deliver it onward or return a failure notice, but both software bugs and system failures can cause messages to be lost. To remedy this, the IETF introduced delivery status notifications and message disposition notifications. However, these are not universally deployed in production. Through 3888. Many ISPs now deliberately disable non-delivery reports and delivery receipts due to the activities of spammers. In the absence of standard methods, a range of systems based around the use of web bugs have been developed. However, these are often seen as underhand or raising privacy concerns, and only work with email clients that support rendering of HTML. Many mail clients now default to not showing web content. Webmail providers can also disrupt web bugs by pre-caching images. IMAP email servers. MAPI email servers. Uses. Business and organizational use. Email marketing. Personal use. Personal computer. Mobile. Issues. Attachment size limitation. Information overload. Spam. Malware. Email spoofing. Email bombing. Privacy concerns. Flaming. Email bankruptcy. Internationalization. Tracking of sent mail.